are the pitfalls, if you will, and opportunities that we experienced?
Terrific.
Call our assessor and ask him.
Well, I think well, in any case, I'm happy to. I'll send them.
Okay, it's supervisor to supervisor.
Yeah, I'm happy to send them a response. I mean, I think that, and I'll share my response with the board and with the public at the next meeting. But I think, Town Attorney, notice where do we stand with our legislation? Have we gotten any response from ORPS?
No, no response from ORPS, no response from Senator Oppenheimer, no response from Senator Milano.
Okay, is this the part of the meeting where I bang the table and look into the camera and say, don't do reval?
Well, I'll follow it up with our elected representatives and see where the bill. I did ask for copies of the bill, so I'll follow it up. And it's only most of the legislation gets passed in June. So it takes a while, and I'll follow it up.
Could you follow? I mean, I have to say, so I promised I wasn't going to get excited tonight.
Okay with me. You can bang the table.
But New York State, has to figure out whether it's going to be Afghanistan, the community of nations, or not. And it's just egregious that they ask communities to do reval and then absolutely do nothing about it. It's just horrific management. So if you could just follow up, because there's no more obvious change that needs to take place. And my clear recommendation, Mr. Feiner, Town Supervisor Feiner, is don't do it. It makes absolutely no sense because the cards are stacked against you. Why go through the hassle? If the state's unwilling to provide any benefit for doing it, don't do it. Okay, so let's go back into order then. We have 3 redemptions of property. Yep. Town Attorney Noto. 3. Thank you, Mr. Nowotny.
Mr. Supervisor, as the board is aware, we have successfully completed our in-rem process, which was commenced in February. And as we discussed at the last meeting, after we have taken title to about 14 properties, we sent a team out to each property to evaluate the property, to gather information, the number of tenants, are they paying rent, who's on the premises, and those types of questions. And usually those visits prompt a response. And the latest visit is no exception. We have foreclosed upon a property actually in Mamaroneck. It's a warehouse at 626 3rd Street. Now, for some reason, this was in the first batch of foreclosures, and this property did not merit a visit. I'm not sure why when they visited the first batch. But this time, last month or 3 weeks, the foreclosure team, as I call them, went out and got the attention of the homeowner. And the property owner, realizing that they no longer own the property, and that it is a warehouse that contains a lot of their things, immediately contacted, I think, Mr. Nowotny, who then immediately sent them to me. And once again, they said, we'd like to get our property back. What do I have to do? So in keeping with our prior resolutions, I ascertained from Mr. Mecca and Mr. Markowitz the value and the amount due and owing. And on this property, with the 1% penalty that we assess, plus the additional fees for the foreclosure, this family can buy back this warehouse for $54,087.52. I told them that obviously I couldn't commit. It's up to the board, that the board would determine tonight if they would permit this, and that they would have to pay it on or before February 28th, usually about 2 weeks to make the payment. So they indicated to me that if the board were to permit them to do that, they would make that payment. This property, I believe, is for sale.
Well, let's do all 3 properties.
Yeah, all right, so let me go to the next 2.
Well, this property is currently, they've listed it for sale?
All these properties have been listed for sale prior to the foreclosure. And what happened was, now let me move on to the next one. This is a Don and Gladys Mecca, no relation to the receiver of taxes, as he keeps reminding me, 51 Purdy and 55 Purdy in Portchester. Now, these properties, one of which I believe is a service station, and Mr. Don Mecca operates his business. In these two buildings, the foreclosure team paid them a visit, And I think subsequent to the visit, the tenants in these buildings started to visit with Mr. Nowotnik and asking him a lot of questions as to, who should we pay our rent to and what do we do now kind of thing. Mr. Mecca, Don Mecca, immediately contacted, I think, Mr. Nowotnik as well, who sent him to a lawyer, who then immediately contacted me, and we started this process. Now, this property has been on the market, and in fact, when it appeared in the newspaper that these properties were in foreclosure but not yet foreclosed upon, one of the potential buyers did contact us. And I explained to them that, look, we haven't taken title yet, that we would be taking title, which is why the two blanks on this resolution is the deed on this property was only recently submitted to the title company for filing, so I don't have an exact date, but I'm sure it's been filed by today. In any event, Mr. Mecca contacted me and was quite agitated because he no longer owns the property, and he apparently has a potential buyer for the property. And I advised him at the time that he could not accept any offers, and I told his broker the same thing because you can't convey a deed. So with that, he said, what would it take? What do I have to do to buy back these properties? And I did the same procedure with Mr. Mecca and Mr. Markowitz. And these are two separate properties. So on 55, with the penalty, it's $37,214.52. And on 51 Purdy, it's a total of $48,137.86. So it's about $86,000 total on that property. And then if we add the 54, we're up to $130,000 to the town.
And both these are commercial properties?
No, one of them is residential, I believe. One of them is commercial, one is residential.
Which one is which? 'Cause
I'm not sure which is which. One of them he lives in, I think.
What is the business that's, again, you say again?
Service station, like a gas
We
station.
could just sell directly to them and make
Body
all the
shop.
money.
This is not, let me remind the board that if we decide in the goodness of our heart in being benevolent and we let these property go back, let these property owners have their properties back, it's not a good economic decision for us because obviously we would make a lot of money on this. You're absolutely right.
Well, potentially. Now, the
Wall Street in me says don't
right.
give it back.
But
The public official in me says we should give the.
well, just keep in mind, as I have advised the board, there is a 2-year presumption, and there's always a discount on an auction.
Yeah.
So,
But look, the whole idea is to get the money back that's owed to the town. I think we're all well disposed, I think, on the board to let the people have their property back. If they make timely payments, they can have their properties back. We're not in the property management. We're not looking to take people's properties. We're looking to get our taxes paid. I can't figure out where these people, what planet they've been on for the last 2 years.
Well, that's my concern.
Yeah.
My concern is how come, why is it that it took someone to knock on their door after several months and years of letters and follow-up?
that's a great question, Councilman, and I can't answer it. I think in the case of, well, look, I don't want to give you my opinion because I don't think it's relevant. Certainly there are some people in this town, and there are a very tiny minority, who have not paid their taxes. They have used the town as a bank. I mean, they basically, not a good interest rate for them because they're getting killed. Because we're making money on these delinquent taxpayers. They have ignored their responsibilities, and some of it is financial hardship, but others I think are just neglect. As far as the property in Mamaroneck, I think there was a legitimate hardship. They have been trying to sell it, and it's just a warehouse, so there wasn't someone living there. On the other properties, now, Mr. Mecca, no relation, had been paying, I think last year, had been making some payments on his 09 taxes, right? 08 tax, excuse me. So I think he had been making a good faith effort. Some of these were back in 06, and he had paid his 08 taxes. So he wasn't totally delinquent, and I think it was just a financial hardship for them. But
$37,000 and
remember, that's with all penalties and interest as well. That's not the principal. That's penalties and interest.
Okay.
And the 1% penalty we assess. But the issue now is these properties are probably all going to be sold. The new owners, I'm sure, are not, are aware of this. And I think we've sent a very